What's up, guys? It's Braden Surprenant. Thanks again for downloading and listening to America's Finest Football Show. Airing each and every Monday night from 10 to midnight during the football season, talking high school football, college football. It re-airs on YouTube, and if you're listening on or watching on YouTube right now, thanks again. Give us the like and the subscribe to Braden Surprenant's YouTube page at B_SURP, as well as 97.3 The Fan. You can follow me on social media at B_SURP, at BSURP. Thanks again for downloading and listening. Hope you enjoy the episode, guys. Well, after a week off, we're back here on a Monday night on the America's Finest Football Show. I'm Braden Surprenant. Thanks again for tuning in to the show tonight. We're going to talk a lot of high school football on this show. We'll dabble in some college and NFL as well, and got a lot to talk about when it comes to high school, college, and the National Football League here on a Monday night. So again, thanks for making your night or our night a part of your night. And let's talk some football. And there's a lot of football to talk about, as I mentioned before. Again, this is a brand new show right here on 97.3 The Fan. It's a local sports talk radio show designed, to be for the football fan. I know it's late, but it's usually after Monday Night Football on a Monday night. And with no Padres today, have to wait till tomorrow for them potentially to clinch a playoff spot. We're going to be talking some football with you tonight. We usually re-air this on Thursdays. The last one got a little bit messed up, but we will re-air this on my YouTube page on Thursday night. Obviously Padres-Dodgers will be going on as well, so that will be on my YouTube page. But you can follow me on social media at B_SURP. Follow me on X. You can follow me on Instagram. You can follow me on TikTok with all of those same handles. Also, if you want to find me on YouTube and find my YouTube page at B_SURP. If you're on YouTube tonight on a Thursday night, be sure to give us a like and subscribe. There'll be a lot of things I want to throw out there for you in the comments that I will be weighing in on as the show airs on Thursday night. But talking about tonight on a Monday, after Monday Night Football, a lot of football that we want to dabble in on. I just got back from a football trip, went with the University of San Diego to North Dakota. We were out there in North Dakota to take on UND up in Grand Forks, North Dakota. It was a fun time. USD, I thought, was going to pull it out. They had a 17-10 lead, almost midway through the third quarter, and things started to unravel on them a little bit. So, we'll talk more about that later on in the second half of the show. But I want to recap what happened on Friday night. Obviously I was around different part of the country on Monday night, on Friday night for a lot of the high school football. I was able to stream a lot of the games, pay attention obviously to a lot of the scores out there. But let's start with a recap, and we'll start with last week's Union Tribune's top 10, at least the teams that participated on Friday. And not everybody was in action. If you look at it, only probably 7 of the teams were in action on Friday night, as we now get into bye weeks and everybody having their bye weeks. And this week's going to be a tough week too. There's not a lot of games going on this weekend in week 6 already. A lot of people have their byes. We at Cathedral have our bye this week, so we'll get to that later on as well. But let's recap week number 5, starting with the top 10. I mentioned Lincoln got a bye last week, so they were idle. Again, they're sitting at 2-2 on the season. They've played 2 really tough teams out of town that were their 2 losses. They got a good game this week against Grant from Sacramento. They're going to have to travel up to Sacramento this weekend to play Grant, and that should be a pretty good game. I still think Lincoln probably pulls that one out. Cathedral Catholic took care of business against Helix on Friday night. Had some bright spots, had some other spots of things that they need to correct, but they win 28-0 over Helix, which has been a nice little fun rivalry for Cathedral and Helix the last couple of years. Dating back to 2009. They've played each other every single year since 2009, with the exception of the COVID season. But on Friday night's game, Brady Palmer had 3 touchdown passes, all to Hunter Harrington. Don's defense obviously did the rest, shutting out Helix and dropping them to 2 and 3. Brady Palmer's official stat line: 12 for 24, 166. Harrington caught 5 passes for 115 yards. Jake Funderburg had a 60-yard or 67-yard touchdown run for Cathedral, who improved to 4-1. Helix was led by Pablo Jackson's 86-yard rushing, but not too much to show for it if you're the Helix Highlanders on Friday. We'll see how they do as they get ready for Grossmont League action. Speaking of Grossmont League teams and schools that are at the top of the Grossmont Hills League, Granite Hill is expected to probably win the Grossmont Hills League. They were off as well. They'll play Madison this week, so that should be an interesting game to say the least. Granite and Madison have been playing each other a decent amount of times the last couple of years. I would imagine Granite probably takes care of business. We'll talk about that game coming up later on in the show. La Costa Canyon all over Fallbrook, 49-0. I mean, this is one of those games where, you know, I when you put your schedule together, and I can talk about scheduling, and, you know, these schedules get made a couple years in advance. Sometimes it's a home and home, and you got to finish out the deal, or, you know, you have to pay a fine to get out of the game and what have you. But these next two games, I'm sitting there going, like, why are these teams playing these games? I don't get it, especially in this day and age of Cal Preps ranking everything for the playoffs. And we're going to talk about that later on in the show, because there's some guys, you know, complaining about the rankings and not knowing what's going on in the rankings and yada, yada, yada. I've seen it in the coach's corner, you know, and with the coaches talking about it. But, like, I look at, like, La Costa Canyon playing Fallbrook. And La Costa Canyon, and by the way, they're really good this year. I think La Costa Canyon is going to make the Open. I think La Costa Canyon is going to win the Avocado League. I'm going to go out there and say that's my pick to win the Avocado League right now. And Grant, they still got to play Carlsbad, and, you know, Carlsbad is the reigning champion up there for the last couple of years. But I really think LCC is going to make the Open Division Championship. I think they could potentially get a 2 seed as the Open Division representation and the Avocado League representation in the Open Division. But, you know, sitting at 5-0, I mean, they go out and play a team like San Clemente, which is great. I mean, San Clemente is a good, solid Southern Section team to play, but, like, why is Fallbrook on your schedule? I mean, look at the Costa Canyon. Again, this is made, like, way before, and this is not a shot at Sean Sovacool, the head coach at La Costa Canyon, who I know is a big listener of 97 to the Fan, huge Padres fan. I'm sure he's super excited for the Padres this week against the Dodgers. But, you know, the St. Augustine game, that doesn't bother me, because when they scheduled that game, St. Augustine obviously was, you know, they won the D1 championship last year. You know, you can't schedule a game like that and expect, you know, 25 to 30 kids to transfer out of that school and all of a sudden the team's different. There's nothing they can do about that. I think Del Norte is a, you know, solid schedule. San Clemente, same thing. You know, but then, like, Mira Mesa and Fallbrook, I mean, Mira Mesa's got a negative 21.6 rating, and Fallbrook's a negative 35.5. It's not doing you any favors. You don't gain anything out of that game. That's why I don't understand for either team. I mean, I guess if you're Fallbrook, you get a little bit of a rating boost because, I mean, whatever the spread was in that game according to Cal Preps, and again, that's how they kind of determine how many points you get. It was probably a number that Carlsbad couldn't cover anyway. So why play the game? I mean, if you're Carlsbad, they're just going to ding you the whole rest of the way. That's going to hurt. I mean, sorry, if you're La Costa Canyon, Fallbrook's going to kill your rating. That could be the difference between LCC making the Open and not, is like what Mira Mesa and Fallbrook do. I mean, that's 0-9 combined and a negative 21.6 and a negative 35.5. I mean, if you want to put one of those games on your schedule, but even then, like, I don't know, it's just not fun to me. I don't like those games. You know, at the junior varsity level, every once in a while we'll play some of those games, and, you know, there's kids that are going to, like, play in that game that get a lot of playing time that would never get the playing time anyway. So if that's the answer for that, I mean, sounds good. But I don't get the game. I don't get playing Fallbrook, you know, if you're LCC, unless it was already on the schedule before. I don't get it. And I don't get it if you're Fallbrook why you would play that game. You know, the scheduling is so interesting to me of, like, what teams decide to put on their schedule. And sometimes I just don't understand when you got all these schools looking for games in town and you got matchups like LCC Fallbrook. I don't get it. But, you know, I digress on that. Again, I mean, I don't know when these schedules were made. I don't know what the deal was. I don't know if it was a last minute thing. I mean, I just don't know. I just don't understand that decision by both teams to play that game. Kobe Herman had touchdown runs of 14 and 50 yards, caught a 64-yard touchdown from quarterback Quinn Roth as the Mavericks improved to 5-0. Roth also threw touchdown passes for 11 and 50 yards to Jackson McGuire. Ryder Wood had an interception for Fallbrook in the loss. They dropped now to 0-5. I mean, Fallbrook has not been the same. I mean, they have been poor for a while. They haven't been very good for a while. I don't understand why you would schedule that game. The same thing with like Carlsbad Ramona. I mean, okay, it's not the worst. I mean, Ramona's usually pretty tough. They're having a really down year up there on the mountain. But you look at Carlsbad's schedule. They play Lakewood, which they lost to, which is 16.9 rating. That's okay. Palos Verdes was a 12 rating. Then they play San Pasqual, which is a negative 12.7 rating. Del Norte is the best team on their schedule before they get to league play based on Cal Preps. That's a 17.6. And then they played Ramona, negative 11.8. Look, I get your personnel might be coming up, might be a little bit different, want to schedule to what's your personnel. For teams like Carlsbad and La Costa Canyon, it's just, I feel like they could be playing way better games against better opponents. I don't get it. I don't get the scheduling. And I'm not saying you got to play a very difficult schedule. And the thing is, it's all going to work itself out anyway. But I don't get the game. I don't get it. Playing Ramona, unless it's a mandatory cross league thing, which could be the case with the Avocado League and the Palomar League. I mean, I don't know how any of that works. There might be a lot of other deals involved. Or that was the only team that could schedule at that time. I mean, that's fine. And I'm not saying us at Cathedral have the toughest schedule ever. I think Lincoln's got the hardest schedule, and I don't think you need to overschedule. But to me, when you come down to scheduling, and I don't really think it matters what school you're at. I think everything is relative to the level you are on your Cal Preps rating. But if I look at it, if I was a head coach, which I'm not, okay, which is another thing, so take that for what it's worth. But if I was a head football coach in town, and regardless of what program I'm a part of, I'm scheduling like I would tell my kids to apply for college. Right? I mean, think about all of these kids that you coach out there. They're all learning to apply for target schools, safety schools, and reach schools. I would seriously do the exact same thing with scheduling for my high school football team. You have more times than not 5 non-league games and 5 league games. Sometimes schools have to play 6 non-league games, and sometimes with some of the schedules that are out there, even if you only have 3 league opponents, then you get a cross-league game, which to me doesn't make any sense anymore, just because everything's seeded based on how good you've been the last couple of years. So all the teams, if the Western League and the Eastern League did a cross-league like they used to, all the Western League teams should be favored by a lot because they're ranked. I mean, you're taking the relatively the best team in the Western League, which would be the best city school, against the 6th best city school, and then 2 against 7, and it wouldn't make any sense. So, I don't get the cross leagues either. But I would schedule based on that rule of applying for college. So if I was applying to college, right, you have 1 or 2 reach schools, for me a reach school would have been UCLA. I had good grades. I didn't have great grades. Right? UCLA would have been I don't even know if I would have got in. I just didn't apply. But that to me would be a reach school. Obviously if you're, if you're a 3.5 GPA, any of the Ivy League schools would be a reach school to apply for. And then you got your target schools. Target schools for me were TCU, which is where I got in. And a decent amount of Pac-12 schools, probably middle of the road to bottom half of the middle of the road Pac-12 schools. And then safety schools for me were Arizona, and some of the Big West schools, right? Some of the lower level Big West schools, schools like Washington State and Arizona State, right? I didn't apply to Arizona State, but you get the idea. So the same thing would be for scheduling. So if I was, for Cathedral, it's a little bit different, just because the level of competitions are. But I always like to use Scripps Ranch as an example because that's where I live. in the Scripps Ranch area. I grew up in the Scripps Ranch area. Obviously, I know the high school very well. Didn't go to Scripps Ranch High School, but I know it very well. I know the head coach there. And again, like I'm not looking at Marlon's schedule. Marlon Gardnera, who is the head coach at Scripps, who by the way are 4-0 on the season. But if I was at Scripps Ranch, like I would schedule, to me at Scripps Ranch, which is a 8.5 rating, I would schedule the bottom half of the Western League, right? So like Point Loma would try to be on my schedule. It'd be like a target school to me. I would also schedule, some type of Palomar League school. I think a Palomar League school would be a perfect fit for a Scripps Ranch schedule. So if I'm the Falcons and I have an 8.5 rating, I'm looking at schools in the Valley League in North County or looking at schools in the Palomar League. I mean, you could play like Del Norte. Like Del Norte would be a target kind of a reach school for you. Poway would be great. Poway's a 7.1 rating on CalPreps. They're 3-2 this year. Like Scripps and Poway, I think should play every year. It's a perfect target school. That's a 50-50 game you're going to win. I got a 50-50 chance I'm going to win that game. I'd schedule 3 of those. I'd schedule a reach school, and I'd schedule a safety school. And that would be it. But even the safety school, like I'm not scheduling any school. If I am going into the season with a positive CalPreps rating, I'm not scheduling a school with a negative CalPreps power rating at the beginning of the season, or at least expected to be a negative power rating. It's just going to kill my schedule. And that's basically how they rank everything anyway. And we'll talk about that later on at the end of the hour, but I don't get some of these opponents. So again, if I'm Scripps Ranch, again, this is not what we're talking about here. We were talking about LCC and playing Fallbrook. Just doesn't make any sense. But if I'm Scripps Ranch, my reach school would be, one of the top North Counties. Like playing like Torrey Pines would be like a reach school more years than not. Or, maybe I call up San Marcos or Carlsbad, or an El Camino or something like that. That would be like my reach school would be Scripps Ranch playing a Avocado League school. And then the target schools for me would be like Palomar schools, right? They're like in the area relatively. So, if I'm Scripps Ranch, not playing City League schools just because I might be in the same league with them, but like a good school to play would be Poway or Mount Carmel. That'd be great. I mean, some of the kids in the neighborhood live in the same neighborhood as kids that are going to Mount Carmel. I mean, Stonebridge over here in Scripps Ranch is like most of it's Mount Carmel territory, but everybody grew up in Scripps Ranch. Like that would be a great game if I'm Scripps. That's a good target game. Poway's a good target game. Modern Day Catholic is a good target game. And even some of like the small private schools like Santa Fe Christian or Bishops or La Jolla Country Day, those are all good, target schools to play. And then I'd play, one team that I think I could beat. And if I'm Scripps Ranch, maybe that's a South Bay school, maybe that's an El Cap, right? That was on their schedule. Maybe that's maybe that's your rival Mira Mesa right now. I mean, again, I'm just using examples. Maybe you play a school in the Gross Mountain Valley League as your, safety school, if you will, that you think you're just going to automatically win. But to me, it's like you play a team that's like 90% you're not going to win, but you got to see how you are. Give yourself a challenge. About 3 schools that are, 50, 60% chance of winning. And then about 1 school that you think you're going to win 75%, 80% of the time. And that's how I do my schedule. So like I see these scores like 49-0 La Costa Canyon over Fallbrook. I mean, is that fun for anybody? I think Carlsbad over Ramona won 41-0. Eli McNeil 3 touchdown passes to Connor Hawk. Jackson Morrison had an 11-yard touchdown run, and Ethan Meyerhoff returned a punt 55 yards for a touchdown. And Sky Schaefer blocked the punt and scored as Carlsbad improved to 4-1. Sean Crawford had a pair of sacks. Ramona fell to 1-4 on the season. Mount Miguel had a bye. I thought this was a great game, by the way. Mount Carmel, El Camino. See, like this is, to me, it's a better matchup, right? I mean, this is not, I wouldn't consider this a 50-50 for El Camino. It's probably a school that they should be able to beat 9 times out of 10. I think for Mount Carmel, it'd be like a reach game for them, but it was close, 22-15. 9th-ranked El Camino Wildcats, according to the media poll from last week, beat Mount Carmel 22-15. Leo Ball